ExplainLikeImFive, is all of our universe. Lit. Can you be hurtling through space and accidentally fly headfirst into a planet because oops you didn't have your headlights on?
Greater than space, is big. Really big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is. I mean, you may think it's a long way down the road to the chemist, but that's just peanuts to space. Greater than, Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the chances of something running into something else in space, other than the occasional hydrogen atom, is minuscule. That said, most of interstellar space is also quite dark. In deep space, nothing's going to be illuminated like you'd see on Earth. If anything, something large or very close by would only be visible as a silhouette against the background star field of space, and, unless you're inside a galaxy, that star field is going to be very dim. For something the size of a planet, you might notice the gravitational pull of the planet long before you otherwise sense it, if you think to look for it. If not that, everything emits a tiny amount of radiation, so there's a very dim and invisible to the beep eye glow to everything, if you have the instrumentation to see it. If the object was, say, the size of a box truck, floating in deep space, you'd probably bump into it before you noticed it with some sort of active scanning technology.
You know how in a lot of sci-fi movies they pass through an asteroid field and the pilot has to maneuver the spaceship expertly to avoid colliding with the asteroids? In real life, you can pretty much go through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter with your eyes closed and won't hit anything at all. In fact, you probably won't even see an asteroid unless you look through a nice telescope. Space is empty, really empty. Another way to think of it this, in about 4 billion years, Andromeda and Milky Way will collide with each other. Two galaxies with 500 billion 1 trillion stars each. The fascinating part, even after the galaxies collide, pretty much none of the individual stars will hit anything at all.
It is extremely unlikely for you to collide with anything in space. There is a gigantic amount nothing out there, so it's far more likely to drift through a near-empty abyss without collisions. But in the unlikely event that you do end up heading towards a planet you don't know about, you'd feel its gravity long before you hit it. So that's a warning sign. As for whether you can see it, almost everything emits infrared light, so you probably have devices in your spaceship that can detect that light, even if your beep eye can't. Also, if you are in a galaxy, which is where most planets are, there will be stars nearby that light it up.
It depends what you define as bright enough to be visible, and what means you're using to detect objects around you. There are rogue planets that travel through the galaxy, and have no star they orbit. These planets could be about the best candidate for the situation you describe, where I imagine you are wondering just how big of an object a human might not visually notice if only looking with a beep eye and no headlights. Keep in mind however that you'd not see the planet, but you'd definitely see the silhouette it blocks out between you and the starry background. So you would have to be pretty inattentive or moving at a pretty high velocity relative to the planet to not notice it approaching, blocking out more and more of the stars in front of you. So the candidate for what you'd run into would perhaps be much smaller. Or to run into something bigger, you'd need to find yourself located somewhere where much of the starry background is blocked by cold, dark matter. I have no idea if this is something that occurs commonly in the universe, but I wouldn't be surprised if some condensing clouds of gas could perhaps cool off, emit less light, and begin to compress. All of this said, you'd have a very long wait ahead of you if you weren't actively searching for something to crash into. As other posts have said, there's a mind-boggling amount of distance between objects in space. And since bright things like stars are in the parts of the universe with objects closer together, to get into your pitch-black planet scenario, you'd be in a part of the universe with even more mind-bogglingly large distances between objects. The chance of hitting something planet-sized is not zero, but it is vanishingly small.